Good morning, church. I hope you're having a blessed day today. It is so very exciting. We are back in Santa Catarina. As most of you know, over the past 2 weeks, we were in the state of Pará. We were traveling. God had sent us back, and for a couple different things we're going to talk about for just a brief moment today. And then what I want to do this week is just kind of do some recaps on some things. What happened on this trip? What was the things that God was speaking? We're going to do a bunch of testimonies this week because in 2 weeks we have seen God move in such dramatic and powerful ways. It really is truly exciting. And so we're going to be doing that this week. I'm so very excited for this, to do testimonies and recaps and all kinds of amazing things. But before we get into all this, I just want to say, obviously you see, we have a little bit of a different setup today. We're going to be kind of moving some things around a little bit, but as you can see right behind me, there is this banner. You say, man, that thing's really cool looking. It is. It's actually a part of the Acampi that we were just at, the Acampamento, or what you would call a retreat, kind of like a retreat, a camp, either one of those names you could use in English. But it was amazing. We're going to talk about that. Let's kind of talk about generally today. How was the trip? How was the past 2 weeks? It was good. It was very good. It was, man, I preached over 14 days. I preached 18 times. We went to 6 different cities and we preached in 10 different churches. And man, it was an experience to say the least. I have preached for 2 weeks straight. I believe only one other time, maybe 2 other times, but I believe just one other time where I would minister every day for 2 straight weeks. And that was right before we went on our Christmas holiday vacation break in 2024, where I preached every day. But it was a little different that time because most of those days I was preaching on the radio. This time we were in churches almost the entire time. There was only one day, we'll talk about this in a little bit, where I didn't actually preach that day, but we're going to talk about why that day is so important. Now, what all happened on this trip? I could share testimonies. I'm going to share testimonies throughout this week. We're going to talk about healing. We're going to talk about deliverance. We're going to talk about the provision of God. And we're going to talk about special miracles. We're going to talk about all 4 of those things because we saw God move in all 4 of those areas during this trip. And it was really awesome. So what's some things about this trip that were exciting? Some things other than just testimonies, which this whole trip was a testimony, but other than just talking about specific testimonies, what were some things about this trip that was really exciting? Well, in 2024, when I left the state of Pará to move to the south, where we live now in the state of Santa Catarina, we live in São José, which is right beside Florianópolis. And if you've been with this ministry, you know when we lived in Pará, we lived in Ananindeua. Well, Ananindeua and Belém, it's basically it's the same thing. You know, when you look at Kansas City, Missouri, you know, you have the Kansas side, you have the Missouri side, but it's all one big thing. Same thing with Ananindeua and Belém. It's all one big greater area because Belém is the capital of Pará. Same thing with where we live now. We live in the capital of Santa Catarina, so São José and Florianópolis. It's all one big area. Well, when God told me to leave the state of Pará, I had an idea of when I would be going back to Pará. Because in 2025, if you've been with this ministry any length of time, you know that we preached the camp for Templo Bethel, a church that's in Acorsi, which is kind of like a suburb of Belém. We preached their camp in 2025. It was 3 nights, 4 days. It was amazing. I mean, salvations and baptisms and deliverances and healings, and I mean, it was incredible. We posted a lot of videos on that. It's on our website, the Acampi 2025. You can go, I mean, there's pictures for the people. We did an over hour long expectation and testimony video on our YouTube channel for them. I mean, it was incredible. And after that, they asked me about 2-3 weeks later, they said, you have to come back in 2026. You have to come back and do this. Well, there's a couple reasons for that. The main reason is in 2025, most of the leaders were new leaders. I mean, they'd only been leaders in the church 3-4 months. None of the leaders were pastors. None of the leaders preached on a regular basis in any length. They were all really new. I mean, some of them were even new in the faith as being leaders. And I'm not totally against that, because I did the same thing when I was younger. I was helping lead young people even when I was a new believer. So I understand that. But they didn't have anybody to do the ministry part. I mean, obviously the pastor of the church, he could have, but it really wasn't his position to do that. You know, they wanted somebody other than the pastor. And that's why they brought me in 2025. And same thing with 2026. They really didn't have anybody to lead the ministry time. Now, I'm very thankful another I guess you could call him a pastor. He's not really a pastor of a church, but he does preach. And he came on this trip, and the very first session he taught, and I finished the session. But it was exciting to have him along, and we did some stuff together. And during one part of the accompaniment, we had a separation moment where my wife took the girls and I took the guys, and another pastor went with my wife, and I took the other guy who was, I mean, you could call him a pastor, and we split off into groups, guys and girls, and we spent about 3 hours. I mean, just think about that, almost 3 hours talking with the guys about things that you don't normally talk about, you know, like sex and pornography and perversion and homosexuality and sin and the consequences of these things, and those types of conversations you don't normally have in church, but they need to be had in church, because God gave specific words, regulations, laws according to these things, that if you live by these things, you will live in the blessing. But if you don't know what God has said, you won't know how to live. Things like God told Moses that if you don't kill all of them when you enter, their daughters will cause your sons to go a-whoring after other gods. That when you get into a relationship with a heathen, you don't bring them to God. They actually take you to the devil. That's a whole nother story I don't want to get into right now. But it was amazing. So during this accompaniment, this was a little bit shorter. This time it was 3 days, 2 nights. And it was incredible. We were in a different place. The first time we were at a house out in the jungle, and it had a little creek beside it. This time we were at a different location. It's an actual retreat location. Same thing though, it's out in the jungle. It's not got a creek, it's got a swamp. It's a part of a swamp out there in the jungle. But it was massive. I mean, huge, big old house. Of course, just like the first time, so is the second time. They slept in tents for 1 night, 2 nights. They slept in tents, and oh man, it's truly incredible. We had a very good time, a very good experience at that. But that's not the only thing we did, because knowing that God had told me to go to the South, and I knew I was going to the South, but I knew I had to come back either in February or March for this trip. It became very clear this trip was going to be very expensive. For me and my wife to travel there and travel back was 3,300 reais just in airfare. And if you count all the parts of the trips, you know, we went to another city, a lot of things, it was over 4,500 reais. I mean, it was a lot of money to take this trip. And it would not make sense to spend this kind of money to travel only for 3 or 4 days. So we ended up traveling for 2 weeks. So that was a question that was asked of me a lot while I was there. Like, why are we here for 2 weeks? You know, why don't we stay for a month? Well, a month is too long to be away from home, and a month is kind of too long, especially with all of the work that we have going on here in the South. You know, we've met some big pastors, and when I say big, I mean big in faith, great in heart. Some people that we really love, and they really love us, and we need to do things with them. And there's some churches here that need us to come, and I couldn't come over the past 2 weeks because I wasn't here. I was in the north. So we had a lot of things that we needed to do here in the south that now that we're back, we can get back to doing our work here, which is exciting. But we spent 2 weeks in the north, and what were some things? We went back to a church the very first day that I had been to almost 2 years ago. And that was I had not been back in almost 2 years. And there was a little bit of trying to figure out this church because my best friend, who is also a pastor and a missionary and an evangelist in the Foursquare church here, he's Brazilian. He was like, I'm gonna have you preach at Pastor Carlos's church, or no, Pastor Garcia's church. And I'm like, man, I don't know a Garcia. And I was like, it must be a new church for me. This is one of my friends that helps me. But then the day of the church, I'm speaking with the pastor, and he sends me the location, and I'm talking with my translator, and I'm looking at the pictures. I'm like, this church looks really familiar. And the pastor's like, you've been here. I'm like, been here? I'm like, what is your name? He says, Carlos Garcia. I was like, I know a Pastor Carlos. I don't know a Pastor Garcia. So it was very funny. We laughed about that a lot. We made the jokes in church. The pastor's like, did you forget us? I was like, no, I didn't. Like, you are in my heart always. I love this church. Amazing people, amazing worship. I was so happy to get to go back there, which is the same thing that happened with another church. On Saturday night, I went to a church in Tocantins. It's a kind of like same thing, suburban Belém. And the pastor, Olival, amazing man of God. I love this man so dearly. And I preached a 3-day conference the first time at his church. We saw great miracles and healings and amazing things, but I hadn't spoken to the pastor in almost 2 years. And it was always confusing to me because I didn't understand, because I would message the pastor and he would never message me back. And I'm like, I love this man, and I know this man loves me, but I don't understand why he would never message me back. And until the day that I go there, and then I find out he's got a different phone number. The whole reason he wanted to call me and I wanted to call him, but we didn't have each other's number. We had different numbers. So, over the past year, he's like, man, I gotta call Cody. And the whole reason we never talked is we had an error in the phone number situation. But it was so exciting. We got to go back there again. We saw God do some great miracles. It was awesome. And even saying that, and obviously these are testimonies. I'm trying not to just do testimonies, because I want to take each day for different testimonies. But the same thing happened again with another church. A guy sent me a message, a great friend of mine, somebody that I know and I love dearly, but I haven't talked to him in over a year and a half, almost 2 years also. And he sent me a message. He got my number from a translator, sent me a message and said, hey, he goes, my pastor has been talking about you for a year. We got to get this guy back. Trying to remember how to get in touch with me, because the pastor didn't have my number. I didn't have the pastor's number. But I would see the pictures online. I've talked about his church so many times. I'd be like, man, I remember this church like it was yesterday. I remember a testimony in this church. After I got done preaching, one of the guys came up to me and asked me to pray for him, got completely delivered right there on the spot. And not only that, a girl came up and said, I need to accept Jesus. She got born again right there on the spot. At the altar after the service. I've got the pictures of me and the pastor praying for her. I mean, great miracles, but I haven't talked to them in 2 years either. And it's so exciting to get to go back to some of these churches that I've been to years before and get to go back to them again and hug them and kiss them and love on the people. And for the people to remember me and I remember them. And it's so exciting to see how far we've come. And such a 2 years is a long time, but really a short period of time to see God transform these people's lives. From the first time I met them and ministered to them to 2 years later going into the churches, and these churches that had almost nothing. I mean, it was like just walls. To see them build the church, decorate the church, and I mean, some of the most gorgeous churches that you could ever be in, and to see the transformation and the growth in God in these people's lives is just, it's so amazing. And it's stuff you cannot see just in one day. It's a lifelong process of seeing people grow in God, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it. And I could share more today. Obviously, I'm going to stop here in just a moment, but we saw some of the most incredible things, you know, on this trip, and I'm just grateful, because it's not me, it's God. It's the Lord. You know, it's principles that we have where we don't share our name. We don't promote ourselves. We don't do these things because we want God to receive all of the glory for everything that happens in and through my life. And it's just amazing to see it. I was talking to one of my brothers yesterday, and before we got on the airplane to come home, and he goes, I just want to tell you I'm proud of you. He goes, I see your life because he knew me before I came back to God. And he said, I remember the day that you told me God is speaking to you to go to Chicago. He goes, I thought you were crazy. He goes, I would have never expected you to be where you are today. He goes, it's truly miraculous from the going to Chicago to where you are now. And I'm like, I can only say it's the Lord. I had no plan, no answers, nothing when I went to Chicago and when I went to Brazil. But as of today, we have seen some of the greatest things that I could have never expected in my life. Greater than I could have ever imagined. God is doing in my life and through my life and in people's lives today. And we are just so grateful and thankful to God. This week, we're only going to be doing testimonies and stories. These lessons will probably be shorter, and normally I share testimonies as I teach, but I want to take just a week. I gotta recap this trip, because this trip was so amazing. I want to share so many of these things with you. So we're going to take a week of this. We will go back to our series on the dispensations of God after this, maybe after this week, one more week. But we will return to the dispensations of God. We're going to finish that series this year, but we're going to probably go back to that in another week. This week, I want to talk about the amazing things that God has been doing in and through our life and in and through this ministry. But Father, bless these people in Jesus' name. The last thing I want to say is I love you. God bless you. For all of you that have been praying for us, that have given and supported this ministry, you are near and dear to my heart. I am with you always. God bless you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow.